Welcome to season 2 of the Ultra Young Podcast.
Season 2.
We've made it.
One under your belt. We've already released the first episode.
Yep.
Where can they find it?
On YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify.
Holy cow. And you did all that.
Yeah, we
Clean up around here.
yeah, it's been fun and we liked it so much we decided to throw it on another season.
Okay.
Because we still got big content.
How is this educational? Like, how does this fit within, like, a school project?
Well, the class I have with you, I was kind of stagnant in it. I'd been in it this is my third year in your class.
3 years.
And the first 2 years I did stuff, but then this year it's sports broadcasting. It kind of fell out of the, not love of that, but I didn't have as much interest following years. So I was kind of just like in the class, like, okay, I don't know what to do here. Like I want to do something. And then I came up with this goal, the 100.
Yeah.
And then I told you, and it was like, oh, this is awesome. This is so cool. And then like a week or two later, you came with the podcast idea.
Yeah.
And I was like, there it is. That's my calling for this class.
I love listening to podcasts while I run, and I was thinking, the 17-year-old's getting ready, Colby Paul, for a 100-mile race, and you had a 50-mile race before that was all of season 1. We started the project, and it was probably like 80% me, and then 20% you. Like, yeah, I like this idea. I like it.
All I brought was the content, pretty much.
Yeah, you had the great story, which is the most important piece. And so, like, we came up with the Ultra Young kind of hashtag, and like, we decided that we were going to start moving it forward. And I was a big part of, like, your Instagram page at first. We got our post, the very first one with the drone shots.
Yeah,
we went up and got that. And you were kind of sitting back thinking, okay, I can do whatever you tell me.
Yep.
Whatever you tell me is good. And then all of a sudden, I started interacting with people on Instagram. And I was like, I like your video. And I was acting as the Ultra Young page, but then I realized, yeah, Colby Paul is actually ultra young, and his interaction, I just felt like I had to turn that over after my very first like interaction with somebody. I was like, yeah, I don't feel comfortable acting like I'm a 17-year-old boy. So you now run that completely, and you also set up the TikTok account.
Yes.
YouTube channel.
Yep.
It was going to be my responsibility to do Spotify, iTunes, and the YouTube channel to get the the content out to the outlets. Who did that?
I did it. Yeah, I was like, well, looking over it, I was like, well, Russ he got a job, he's got a family.
Oh, you're so
and
nice.
I was like, well, I'm kind of sitting here just posting one Instagram post every week. I was like, if it's the Ultra Young Podcast, I was like, I mean, I'll step up. This is experience that I want to learn because this is stuff I can use later in life. And it's good experience.
And it's been a quick progression. Like, you went from just posting once or twice a week to now thinking this is going to continue forward. And we've had conversations of, like, you're getting guests that you're going to have on the show, and we're transitioning where I've been kind of that crutch of a co-host, and you'll probably see that slowly fade out, and I might become like a guest on your show, and we'll talk about my running experience at some point. But today we're introducing the 100-mile race.
Yeah,
we've talked about it.
Yeah, we're just gonna pretty much tell you what season 2 is, and season 2 is my Antelope Canyon 100-mile ultra marathon, right out there.
100 miles.
Yep.
Season 2 is all about it. It's gonna be a short season, right? Because you've got this coming up in.
It's from today. It's 7 days away.
7 days.
So we are. I mean, it's there. I came up with a dream about 3-4 months ago, and those 4 months have dried up, and it's a week away.
So we're probably going to manipulate this season. It was going to be the peak of like the 100-mile race is the end of the season. I'm thinking it's probably going to be we're going to dissect it and keep that part of the season 2, kind of talk about the experience, if you finish, when you finish, the plans that you've got. So the 100-mile race, it's a week away. You've been training quite a bit, and now you're in your taper state. Tell us about all of your thoughts and your preparation.
Yeah, the 100. So it's been so overwhelming just thinking about it. But so the most I can do is just prepare as much as I can. That's kind of what I always thought about, because I'm like, if I ever thought about the 100, I'm like, oh my gosh, no way I can ever do that.
Yeah.
But I can go run 13 miles right now instead of not running any miles. And that, no matter what, that has to help.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a mindset I took for a while. And now it's in the taper stage. And I've gone over this 100 from mile to mile thousands of times in my head. I'm just sitting in, it's affecting school at this point. I'm sitting there in math and I'm thinking, okay, mile 27, we take a turn, we have a mile and a half in sand. I can do that. That'll be a walk stage. And just over and over. It's like an obsession at this point. Which
Yeah. I know that when I was in high school doing homework and I'd start reading books, I'd start to doze off. And I played basketball in high school, and I'd just be like reading some book for whatever class. And it would just have the sentence trail off from something along the lines of, and the main character traveled down the road, and all of a sudden I went, and basketball, shoot, three-pointer. I'd doze, like, be like, where?
You're like, that was an epic 3 I made yesterday.
Yeah, and so I'm sure everything that you're experiencing now is like your mind is just dedicated to that, and everything else that you're thinking about is just kind of extra.
I know. It's a wild feeling that not many people have had. So that's why I'm excited I get to talk about it here, because people want to listen, hopefully. It's just no one's ever had this.
If they're here, they're here.
Yeah.
If they're turning it off, it's probably because of me. The ultra is such a niche thing. Not very many people do it. And I didn't know enough about it. And I've honestly, like, to just be completely transparent, I've avoided knowing anything about it for the fear of thinking, oh, yeah, I can do that. After running a couple marathons and training for half marathons, the next step is always like, well, what else can you do?
Yeah.
And so I finally started reading books about ultra marathoners, and I've been looking at like training guides and trying to think of like, I want to know what Colby's going to be going through, and like that feeling. Have you had any experience like looking into people's their journey through the 100-mile race?
I've watched so many hours of just YouTube videos. That's what I love watching, is just YouTube videos of people who've either like documentaries on their hundreds or interviews of people who have done hundreds. And it's just so interesting to me. I'm like, these people have done this and they finished it, and some people have just done multiple. Like they're 8, 10, and it's like, wow, this is like my life gold medal. This is my golden medal.
The pinnacle, right?
I know. But what I love is it's so niche that it's like, yeah, there's these people who've done so many, but if you even attempt one, it's like there's so much support around it.
Yeah.
It's so awesome. That's one thing I love about like trail running and the ultra marathon community. So supportive in every way. It's amazing.
Yeah, the books that I read, it was exactly that. People saying they'd get out on the trail and they'd be spilling their life story, secrets that they've never told anybody in their life, and they're running alongside somebody, and within 5 minutes they're spilling their guts.
Yep.
So the stuff that I've watched, the interviews that I've been able to see, and like the book experiences that they share, they often talk about like the breakdown, the mental, the physical, and even sometimes like a spiritual experience that they're having. Sometimes like it's the overwhelming positive, even if they don't finish. But sometimes it's pretty gnarly out there. So how are you preparing mentally to be able to like hit those moments where your body might be breaking down, or your mental capacity is just hitting its limits?
Well, I don't know if I can, but for what I know, if any of you don't know, the 100-mile trail, you do like a 50-mile trail, and then you get to a loop, a 40-mile trail, sorry, and then you get to a loop, and you do 6 10-mile loops. You go like one way and then you reverse it. And in that loop, it'll be nice because I'll have my family will kind of have set up like a mini camp.
Yeah.
And then, so that'll be like, I'll have support and it'll always be there. So from mile 50 on, I will always have someone running with me, and they'll be like my family or close friends, which, it can't hurt, hopefully.
Yeah.
So, if I hit that wall where it's like, I physically can't move, it's like, my dad will be like, "Okay, let's go, move."
Let's get
Like,
moving. You can push further.
Yeah.
So what is what's the cutoff? Are there certain stations that you have to like reach a certain point by a certain time?
For what I know of, the cutoff is 30 hours. If you can't
Okay.
finish in 30 hours, you get a DNF.
Okay.
And yeah, so that's
Tell us what a DNF is. I'm
Did-
sure anybody who's listening to an
Yeah.
ultra podcast knows, but
did not finish.
Oh.
If you get a DNF, you do not get a medal, you don't get a belt buckle,
Oh.
and it's some sad stuff.
okay.
So that's stay away from the DNF. No, we don't want that.
All right. Well, we've introduced your 100-mile race. We've talked a little bit about your training, mental preparation. Let's just talk about your journey more than anything, like your experience. If you could kind of summarize how you feel about this whole process, let's talk to that.
Well, sorry, before we go all that, I want to know your reaction to when I first told you I was doing the 100. Because no one knows this. Russ was the first person I ever told I was
Oh,
going to do
really?
100. Yep.
Wow.
I don't even think you knew this.
No, I am surprised as I was then.
Yep. Before my parents, before anyone, I was like, I kind of decided in the class, I was like, that's it. I'm going to do this.
I'm doing it.
I'm going to do this. And then I was like, Russ, I'm going to do 100. And I was like, what did I just say? I was
Alright.
like, what did I just say? So I want to hear I want to hear your read.
Okay, I'll share with you, but then I want to have your memory of what I gave back to you. But I remember you coming up to me and telling me you'd do the 100. I knew you'd already done an ultra, but it was, what, 30-something miles?
Yeah, 50K, yeah.
50K, which is nothing to, like, be...
No.
Like, to be... Well, I'm not saying it's nothing.
It just
Like
nothing
30
compared to the 100.
Well, yeah, I was going a different direction of it's nothing to be like... I don't even know if it's... Nothing was not the right word. It's more of along the lines of like, that is incredibly tough for like anybody who's done a marathon or a half marathon would look at that and be like, whoa, I can't imagine doing it. So when you came up and talked to me about it, my mind went to, okay, after you finished that first ultra, you came back to school and I asked how you were feeling, and it was only a couple days after, and you're like, yeah, it was fine. I was like, how does he recover? I was like backing downstairs and even backing upstairs after the St. George Marathon, and I was like, I don't know how he recovered so quickly. So my first initial thought was like, okay, yeah, you'll do it. It's going to happen. But also, I immediately thought, who is this kid? Like, why is he doing this? Like, the first time I saw you run was at the Halloween half marathon, and I'm running down toward the finish, like less than a half a mile left, and your brother, Jack, is sitting there, and he's like, hey, I think that's Russ. And I run by, and I made some comment to him, and he didn't really know who I was. And then all of a sudden he's like, Russ. And I finish. I come around the corner. I've got my medal, and I see
This is my favorite
him
moment.
sitting there with your mom, and I see them see you coming behind me because you weren't an experienced runner.
No.
And I wasn't fast, but I had done a couple of them. And Jack starts yelling, Colby, you got this. Catch Russ.
That's right.
Catch Russ. And I'm looking and I start laughing, but I yell. I couldn't contain myself. I looked at him and I was like, he's never going to finish me. He's never going to pass me. I finished a half an hour ago. Even though it was only like 10 minutes or 4 minutes or whatever
it's so
it was.
funny.
But yeah, I saw that and I was like, okay. I don't know how fast you're going to do it or what, but now that I've seen like your progress and I've followed a lot more, like my first initial shock has dissipated to like, oh, Colby, you got this. Like I'm excited to see you go through it. I'm excited, like the fact that you can get through 100 miles means like if you get into some really tough situation in life, you're going to understand how to pull deep and figure stuff out. Like this is going to be one of the biggest problem-solving moments of your life. Like I don't know how to move my foot. I can't lift it, and then you're moving forward. It's going to make, I have a hard time with a roommate in the future seem like nothing. So yeah, my first initial thought was like, you are crazy.
Yep.
And I got excited for you. And that was my first initial response.
And now you can pretty much tell why you were the first person I told. I mean, it's motivating just talking to you about it. I mean, from you talking about your experience, from me telling you, it motivates me. I'm like, yeah, I can do this.
Yeah.
Russ believes in me.
I believe in you. And like when we're sitting in class and talking to people, like I'll bring up running because like nobody in my circle other than like my wife and a few other people are like even want to hear anything about running. Like non-runners, you start talking about running and you're like, yeah, I did a 15-mile run, and they're like, I don't care.
It's so funny. I'll be
Why
in like
would you?
class and people are like, why would people run on their own? That's torture. And I'm like, oh man,
That's
you torture.
Yeah, so when I'd see you in class and I'd do a half marathon, like last year I signed up for I think 11 or 12 half marathons, and it like changed my life. Before that I'd done like maybe 3, and running was so fun, and so I'd be like, hey, finish my half marathon. My pace was like a 6:50. I'm super excited, and you're like, wow, that's so fast.
'Cause I can't do that pace. I mean, that's awesome.
Then you would turn around and be like, I've got a 50-mile race coming up. And I'm like, no way. So they're so different. Like your trail race and road racing, like you've got some experience, not a lot with road racing, but like what was the difference between your like half marathon? It's 13 miles. It's nothing short of a miracle for most people to finish. But then you go to your 30-mile plus ultra. What's the difference between running on the road and on the trail?
Well, a big reason is I love being in the trails.
Yeah.
Opposed to running on road, kind of feels more like training in a way.
Yeah.
Like when I'm up in the trails, like in the mountains, it's like, okay, this is awesome. This is relaxing. This is fun. I'm just kind of exploring in a way. And then road, I'm just like, there's my friend's house. There's another lamppost.
I've seen
just
all
like,
of this a million times.
Yeah. But, and then another one, and this one's funny. I know my time on the haunted half, but up until about 2 weeks ago, I didn't know my time on both of my 50Ks.
Really?
Because the time no one ever asked me my time. I never really cared about it. I was just like, yeah, I finished it. I did it
That's
as
the
a
goal.
16, 17-year-old. But with the half marathon, I was like, oh yeah, 2 hours. It was 2 hours. I know it.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's just kind of, that's a different thing is when I'm running road, I care more about time and my pace.
Yeah.
When trails, I'm just like, yeah, go however far I can. Let's just see how far I can go. See if I can finish.
Okay, that shorter distance too is a lot easier to quantify your time and your pace. So do you think if you ran more ultras, like you would be looking at your time a little bit more if it became more common of a race for you?
I definitely know if I did another 50K, I'd be like, okay, I'm beating these 2 times.
Right.
I'm going to do, but I don't know if I'd have a specific time slot. I'd be like, get that, beat that, or like get to there. It's just kind of like, yeah, just do it. Have fun.
That's awesome. So the 100-mile race coming up, you've got quite a few races under your belt. You've been training. Like I love that your 50-mile race was a training run.
Yeah.
But it was also like the moment that gave you kind of that permission to remove the roadblock to let you go to that 100-mile race. Can you tell us a little bit about the conversations that you've been having with your family once that's been lifted? You've ran your 50, and now that you've got that 100-mile race coming up, what's the conversation in your household? Especially, I want to know your mom and dad's perspective, because I know your dad does it, feels it, but we've never really talked about like, what does this do to a mother that knows their kid's going to go torture themselves for 100 miles?
Yeah, well, I mean, before the 50 was even worse. It was like, okay, we want to support you, but this is dumb. It's not safe. My mom always said, she was like, this just isn't like a safe thing to do. Like, it's not good for your body. So why would I let you do this? But they also were like, you have to show us that you're taking it serious.
Yeah.
Which I did. And that 50 showed that. And so after that, it's been so much support. Not enough support to let my mom run with me on the 100, but because we're worried, we were joking. We're doing like a little role playing. We're like, okay, Mom, mile 72. My legs really hurt. I just laid down and I'm begging you, please let's just finish. What do you say? She said, oh, we go home. We're done.
All right, Mom.
And I'm like, boom, crew. You're no longer running with me.
Yeah. I get it. Like, I think of my two daughters, and they're just little, and my oldest is more independent, and she likes to go and do things by herself, and like I'll try to help her, and she's like, no, don't. But then my 5-year-old still fakes like she's asleep when she gets out of her car seat, so I'll carry her in, and she could be like 15 years old and pull that stunt, and I'd still be like, oh, my little baby. So I get that feeling, but then you escalate it to like a mother's standard, and she's gonna be like, oh, are you the youngest in the family?
Yep, I'm the baby
You're
child.
the baby.
Yep.
So seeing that pain and that distress, I'm sure would be really tough. So she's crew.
Yep.
It's crew. So what does a crew member do for you?
A crew member, they're gonna have all the food ready, like any food I need, whether that's pizza, potatoes, what gels, any type of food I need.
Ranch dressing.
Yep. if I can stomach it, give it to me.
Yeah.
And I mean, yeah, she'll do good at that, and that'll be her job, kind of crew. And the crew will just be whatever, because you don't really know what you're gonna need on the 100. I don't know what I'm gonna need at mile 80,
Duct
but I
tape.
do know. Yeah, my mom, she'll be ready. She'll have what I need.
Yeah.
So that's not. I may not be able to trust her while running, but I can fully trust her crew.
Oh, that's so funny. That the level of trust, like
Yeah.
it's not just a blanket. I trust her. It's like I trust her completely as a crew member.
Yeah, 100% fully crew.
Okay, now let's shift gears for your dad's thoughts, your conversations, because it's going to be a lot more relatable as to what he's run and what you've run. He's never done a 100-mile race. What's the longest that your dad's run?
My dad did a 50. He did at 50 years old. He did his 50.
Oh
It's kind of like
my
a
gosh, that's great.
cool little thing. Him, and one of our other running buddies, Jim, they did it together. And I mean, they're both fun. Jim's so fun to talk to. Love talking to him about running. I mean, if you have no motivation to do anything, go to Jim and he'll motivate you.
Okay, we'll probably throw his Instagram handle
Yeah.
up on
So I'm talking to my dad, and he's done the 50, and he always said, well, at the start especially, he's like, if you do 100, I'd do it with you. Like he's like, I don't even know if I'd want to do 100 anymore, but he's like, that's kind of always how I thought. And he's like, now I've had to step back from that and just be support.
Yeah.
And this is also funny. He was telling me yesterday, he goes, this will be the first race I can ever think of where I was at the starting line and I didn't run it.
Ooh.
Because my mom doesn't really run anymore, and Jack definitely didn't run. So every race he goes to, he runs it.
Yeah.
So it was kind of weird. It's like, yeah, this is
He was the leading
this
force.
is me. This is like me, independent,
Yeah,
and
that's
you're
gotta be
supporting.
an interesting feeling for him to like hear that sound of the race start.
Yeah.
And the excitement, the shuffle, and watch everybody just take off.
Just have to watch them go off and not go with them.
And not see you for probably the first however many miles until that loop. At the aid stations, how often? I know the last part, it's like your 10-mile loop, so you'll have it.
Yeah, on the 10-mile loop, there's an aid station every 5 miles, so there's 2 of them.
Okay.
So that'll be nice every 5 miles. And then this race, they have them pretty much every 5 miles,
Okay,
right around there.
So
you
you're not
could
having worries of getting lost, or you're focusing just on running.
focusing is just preserving energy, get to the loop, and don't get injured.
Okay, yeah, that
Finish.
injury stuff. Like, you've got to stay pretty alert. Hit that last segment that we were talking about, and then we'll send it out.
Yeah. All right. Well, this should be the end of our episode 2. Next episode, episode 1. Sorry, season 2, episode 1.
Yeah, this is
So-
going to be. We're releasing every week now
Yeah, it'll be a weekly release.
on Wednesdays.
Yep, Wednesdays at 6.
Wednesdays at 6.
That's when I don't have any. That's when I don't have anything. That's what you get when you get 2 pretty busy people.
Okay. Well, that's awesome. Thank you so much. It's been a lot of fun.
Thank you all. All right, signing out.